Hi everyone, these are the video solutions to the Paper 1 Foundation November 2024. So let's have a look at question 1. The table gives the lengths in meters of 5 road tunnels. Which of these 5 tunnels has the greatest length? Well, we can see that it's this one, which is Lairdal. Write down the value of 9 in the number 13,900, so it would just be that. The length of one of the tunnels when rounded to the nearest 1,000 is 17,000 meters. Write down the name of this tunnel. So both of these tunnels are quite close to 17,000. That rounds up to the nearest 1,000 to 17,000, but that goes to 18,000. So St. Gothard is our answer to that. Write the number 12,940 in words. So like that. Work out the total length of the Arlberg tunnel and the Jingpingshan tunnel. So the Arlberg is 13,972. And you want to add on the 17,540. Type that in your calculator, and it gives you an answer of 31,512. And so pop that in your answer line. Okay, next question. So here are two shapes. We've got a triangle and a quadrilateral. Write down the mathematical name of the triangle. Well, both these sides are the same, so that is an isosceles triangle. The quadrilateral, all the sides are the same as well, so it's a square. So on the triangle, draw a line of symmetry. So you want to draw a line down the middle of the triangle like that. Part C says write down the order of rotational symmetry of the quadrilateral. So that's how many times it would look like it does right now whenever we rotate it through an angle of 360 degrees. And it would look exactly as it is now 4 times. The pictogram gives information about the number of kilometers Thomas traveled on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and on Thursday. It tells us that 1 square represents 4 kilometers. Write down the number of kilometers Thomas traveled on Tuesday. So each of these is 4. There are 4 fours, so he traveled 16 kilometers. On Wednesday, Thomas traveled further than he did on Thursday. How much further? Let's work out how far he traveled on Wednesday. So 4, 8, 12, 16, and then 3/4 of 4, which is 3. And then on Thursday, he traveled 4, 4, and 2. So in total on Wednesday, 4, 8, 12, 16, and 3 is 19. On Thursday, he traveled 10 kilometers. On Wednesday, Thomas traveled further than he did on Thursday. How much further? 9 kilometers further. On Friday, Thomas traveled 13 kilometers. Show this information on pictogram. So we want to draw 1, 2, 3 of these. That takes us to 12. And then we want to draw one small little square like that, representing a quarter. That's what we should have had. So question 4, the table shows information about the temperatures at different heights above sea level. Work out the difference in temperature between a height of 0 meters. That would be down here. We're talking about this temperature, 12 degrees. And a height of 12,000 meters, which is our negative 58. So we want to know the difference between these two numbers, which means we want to subtract them from each other. So I can do 12, subtract negative 58. Going to tell me the difference between these. And then I'll use my calculator to do that. So that was the same as 12 add 58, which gives me an answer of 70. So the difference in temperature is 70 degrees. Work out the difference in temperature between a height of 4,000 meters and a height of 6,000 meters. So it's the difference between these two numbers. Again, I can take my negative 17. I want to see what's the difference if I subtract negative 32. And then type that in my calculator. Gives me an answer of 15 degrees. And then part C, at what height is the temperature 10 degrees warmer than the temperature at a height of 9,000 meters? So if we go to 9,000 meters, we're looking at the negative 50. And we want a temperature that's 10 degrees warmer than this. So 10 degrees warmer would be a temperature of negative 40 degrees Celsius. Think, well, where is that? Well, that's here. It's at 7,000 meters. 5 part A, simplify 8D, subtract 4D, add 7D. So let's do 8D, subtract 4D to give me 4D, then add on my 7D, and that gives me 11D. Should I add for that? So simplify M multiplied by 10P. So that would be 10MP. Like this. The reason we do it in that order is because M comes before P in the alphabet, and we need to write it in alphabetical order. Pop that in my answer line. Solve x add 5 is equal to negative 19, so subtract 5 from both sides. So x is equal to negative 24. Y divided by it is equal to 6, so we want to undo dividing by it. We multiply by it on both sides, giving us an answer of y is equal to 48. Simplify a multiplied by a multiplied by a, that's a to the power of 4. K equals 8 and n equals 12. Work out the value of 9k, subtract 4n. So we've got 9 lots of 8, take away 4 lots of 12. Pop that in your calculator, really. 9 multiplied by 8, subtract 4 multiplied by 12, gives you 24. Question 6. Pierre used 2,358 units of water last year. Each unit of water costs 0.28 euros. Pierre has already paid for some of the water he used. He paid 42 euros each month last year. Work out how much more Pierre has to pay for the water he used last year. So let's first off work out the total cost of the water. That's going to be equal to how many units he needed, which is how many units he used, sorry. So 2,358 multiplied by the cost, which is 0.28 euros. And let's work that out. So use your calculator to do that. That comes out at 660.24 euros. Pierre has already paid for some of the water he used. He paid 42 euros each month last year. We could work out how much he's already paid. Well, that's the 42 euros multiplied by the 12 months. That comes out at 504 euros. Work out how much more Pierre has to pay. We want to take this and then subtract 504 euros. 660.24 subtract 504. That comes out at 156.24 euros. That's your final answer. Okay, so let's look at question 7. ABCD is a quadrilateral. Okay, angles in a quadrilateral will add up to 360, so that's useful for us. ADE is a straight line. Angles on a straight line sum to 180. Work out the value of x. Give a reason for each stage of working. Okay, let's work out this little angle here. Let's call it y. And we'll say that y is equal to 180 subtract 138. So that means y is equal to 42 degrees. And it does tell us to give a reason for each stage. So we want to say angles on a straight line sum to 180 degrees. Okay, like that. Now we do know what this is. It's 42 degrees. And like I said, angles in a quadrilateral sum to 360. We can do 360, subtract the sum of these, and that will give us what x is. So we can say x is equal to 360, subtract all of the other angles added together. Put them in a bracket to show we want to add them all together first before subtracting it. And then let your calculator do the heavy lifting there. That gives us an answer of 86 degrees. And like before, we need to give a reason for that, and the reason is that angles in a quadrilateral sum to 360 degrees. And that's your answer. Okay, question 8. There are 80 cars in a car park. 27 of the cars are red, 10 of the cars are blue, and the rest of the cars are white. One of the cars in the car park is chosen at random. Write down the probability that the car is red. It tells us 27 of the cars are red out of 80 cars in total. That's the probability of picking a red car. Find the probability that the car is white. Well, let's work out how many white cars there are. There are 80 in total. And let's take away the 27 that are red and 10 that are blue. We'll do 80 subtract 37, which gives us 43. So 43 out of the 80 cars are white. So that's the probability that we pick a white car. Question 9. 15 identical pencil cases cost 41.25 Swiss francs. Work out the cost of 52 of these pencil cases. So we know that 15 of them cost 41.25. Let's work out the cost of one. To do that, we're going to divide by 15. So we want to divide the cost that we have here by 15. 41.25 divided by 15 gives you an answer of 2.75 Swiss francs for one. We want to work out the cost of 52 of them. We will do 52 multiplied by 2.75. That gives you an answer of 143 Swiss francs. So question 10, the scale diagram shows the positions of a castle and a tower. 1 centimeter represents 1.5 kilometers. This is a scale diagram, so if you measure this length, it will be directly proportional to the length in real life. Angela walks from the castle to the tower along a straight path, so she walks along that line. It takes 18 minutes to walk each kilometer. Work out how many minutes Angela takes to walk from the castle to the tower. So what you want to do is you want to measure that distance. So having a look at the mark scheme, we see that we could have had anything between 5.8 and 6.2 inclusive here for the distance in centimeters. So if you measured your line, any value between 5.8 and 6.2 inclusive would be okay. We're going to say we measured it and it came out at 6 centimeters. And I know that 1 centimeter represents 1.5 kilometers. I've got 6 of those centimeters, so I want to do 6 multiplied by 1.5 kilometers, which tells me that the distance in real life is 9 kilometers. It says that Angela takes 18 minutes to walk each kilometer. I want to do 9 kilometers multiplied by 18 minutes for every kilometer. So I'll do 9 multiplied by 18 on my calculator, and it tells me that it would take her 162 minutes to walk that distance. Just go ahead and pop that in your answer box there. So 162 minutes. Question 11, make D the subject of the formula. So we want to rearrange this equation. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. I want to get D on its own. That gives me C subtract 5 on the left is equal to 8D. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 8. I need to divide everything on the left by 8, so I show that using my fraction bar. And that would be my answer, C subtract 5 over 8, like that. On the grid below, draw the graph of y equals a half x subtract 1 for the values of x from -2 to 3. So there are a few different ways we could do this. The way that I like to do it is I start off by plotting the y-intercept. I know that that's -1, and then I use the gradient. So a gradient of a half means that for every 2 across, I go 1 up. So like that. Okay, now the reason I know that is because the gradient is the change in y over the change in x. And so for a gradient of a half, that means that the change in y is 1 for a change in x of 2, which is where I get this. What I'll do is I'll start off here. I know that point is definitely on my line, and I'll go 2 across and 1 up. I just have to be a little careful because if I look at my x-axis scale, every 2 boxes is worth 1. So I need to go across 4 boxes. So I go across to here, and then I need to go up 1, which takes me to here. Because my y-axis scale, every 2 boxes is worth 1 as well. Now, if I repeated that, if I went across 4 boxes, I would go off my grid. So I need to do it down here. I need to kind of reverse the pattern, so to speak. I need to go down 1, and then I need to go to the left 4. Like that. Now I want to join these points up using a straight line. Okay, question 13. The diagram shows a rectangular wall and a square tile. Hamish wants to cover all the wall with tiles. The tiles are sold in boxes. There are 6 tiles in each box. Each box of tiles costs £17.50. Work out the total cost of the tiles Hamish needs. So we need to work out how many tiles he needs to actually tile the wall. And if we think of how to do that, well, we know this distance of the tile is 0.3 and it goes up a height of 2.1 meters. So we want to see how many tiles does he need in this direction. So take your 2.1 meters and divide it by 0.3 meters. And that would tell you that he needs 7 tiles. So there would need to be 7 tiles this way. Then work out how many tiles he'd need to go across in this direction. So take your 3.6 and divide it by 0.3. And that comes out at 12. So he'd need 12 tiles. That allows us to work out how many tiles he needs in total. So we can say the total number of tiles is equal to 7 multiplied by 12, which is equal to 84. Okay, down slightly. So there are 6 tiles in each box. So let's work out how many boxes we'd need. So we'll say number of boxes is equal to the 84 tiles that we need divided by 6. This will tell us how many boxes we need. And that comes out at 14 boxes. A nice whole number there. If it weren't a whole number, we would need to always round up. So if it said I need 14.2 boxes, well, really, I'd need to buy 15 boxes. Each box of tiles costs £17.50. Work out the total cost of the tiles. So let's say the total cost is the number of boxes. That's the 14 boxes multiplied by the cost of a single box, which is £17.50. That comes out at £245. Okay, question 14. Kit has a fair triangular spinner. It says fair because it means that the probability of landing on each of them is equal. In this case, the probability would be a third of landing on each of the numbers, and a fair square spinner. Okay. Triangular spinner can land on 2, 4, or 6. The square spinner can land on 1, 2, 3, or 4. Kit spins each spinner once. She adds the number the triangular spinner lands on to the number the square spinner lands on to get her score. Complete the table to show all the possible scores before the scores have been done for you. So you just want to be adding the scores together. So this box here corresponds to this column where we'd be getting a 3 on the square spinner and we'd have got a 2 on the triangular spinner. So just add 3 and 2 together to give you 5. Add 4 and 2 together to give you 6. Add 4 and 1 to give you 5. 4 and 2 to give you 6, and so on. Fill in your table like this. That's what you should have had. So Kit spins each spinner once. Find the probability that her score is 9 or less. So this sample space records every option that we can get if she spins each spinner once. So we could get a 3, 4, 5, 6, so on. So everything in this rectangle here is what she could get. We want to find the probability that her score is 9 or less. So if we have a look, every one of those is 9 or less, except for this 10. So we want to count up how many options still remain. A quick way to do that, it's a 3 by 4, which means there are 12 numbers in this rectangle. We've got rid of one of them, so that means there are 11 out of 12 ways that she can score 9 or less. So Rima buys 140 plants. 35% of the 140 plants cost $6 each. 1/4 of the 140 plants cost $8 each. The rest of the 140 plants cost $10 each. Work out the total cost of the 140 plants. So we'll do 35% of 140. So type into your calculator 0.35 multiplied by 140 to do that. It's going to give us the number of plants. Comes out at 49 plants. And we could say that we're looking at the $6 plants here first. There are 49 of them, so we want to take 49 and multiply it by the $6. That comes out at $294 for those. So that's these ones done. Then look at a quarter of the plants. These are $8 plants. So a little heading there so we can see what we're doing. So let's work out 1/4 of 140. Type that in your calculator and it comes out at 35 plants. And they cost $8. So take your 35 plants, multiply it by $8. That's $280. And then the rest of the plants cost $10 each. So we're looking at our $10 plants. We're looking at the rest of the plants. So there were 140 plants. We want to take away the 49 and the 35 that we've already accounted for to work out how many plants remain. That comes out at 56 plants. And there are 56 plants remaining, and each of them cost $10, so multiply by 10, which comes to a total of $560. Work out the total cost. Well, we want to just add the costs that we've worked out together, all of those three numbers. So do your 294, add your 280, add your 560. Just move down a little bit. Type that into my calculator. 294, add 280, add 560. Comes out at $1,134. That's your answer. Question 16. By rounding each number to one significant figure, work out an estimate for 31.4 multiplied by 48.7. Show you're working clearly. Let's start by rounding each of these numbers to one significant figure. So this is approximately 30 to one significant figure. Now, in order to do that, we want to go to our first significant figure, which is the first digit that's not a 0. So in this case, it's 3. We look at this number here and it tells us whether we're going to round this 3 up to a 4 or whether we're going to stay. We're going to stay in this case because it's closer to 30 than it is to 40. You could think of it that way. When this digit here is 5 or more, that's when we would round up. But obviously it's not, it's less than 5, so that's why we stay. Then we'll take our 48.7. Again, draw our line here. The 8 is greater than 5, so it tells us to go up. The 4 goes up to a 5. So this is 50 to one significant figure. Then what we can do is we can actually do this calculation with our rounded numbers. So we'll do 30 multiplied by 50, which comes out at 1,500, 1,500. That is the estimate to this calculation. We could say that this calculation is approximately 1,500. Let's pop it on our answer line like that. Question 17, reflect shape P in the line x is equal to 1. So the line x is equal to 1, I'm going to draw on your screen in a second. So that line there is the line x is equal to 1. Quick way to remember that is to just look at the coordinates everywhere on the line. So I've just picked out a few coordinates. And if you notice, the x coordinate here is 1. So this point has the coordinate 1, 3. This point has the coordinate 1, 5. And down here, x coordinate's 1, y coordinate's -2. So it's 1, -2. If you notice, they all have this in common. They all have the x coordinate in common, being 1, which is why this is the line x is equal to 1. Let me just get rid of some of that writing so I can write it more clearly. So I now want to reflect this shape in the line x equals 1. So take every point of your triangle, and I would have to go 2 to my line this way. So I want to go 2 to my line this way. This point up here is in line with the point beneath it. It's 3 above it. So that point would be here. And then if we take this last point, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to my line. So I want to go 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Or you could think it's 2 away from this point. So that would also work. Then join up your points. And that is your reflected shape there. The table shows some information about the hourly rates of pay of 60 workers. The hourly rate of pay is between $10 and $15. It tells us that this does not include the 10, so P is greater than 10, but it's less than or equal to 15. So it includes the upper end, it doesn't include the lower end here. And it tells us how many people are getting paid that. There's 18 people. Write down the modal class. So the mode, that's a common thing we need to know. That's the most common piece of data, or the most common class in this case. Well, 18 is the greatest frequency. So the modal class would be P is greater than 10, but less than or equal to $15. Work out an estimate for the mean hourly rate of pay of the 60 workers. So notice here it says an estimate. And the reason it's an estimate is because we don't actually know the exact values that these people are paid. So we know that there are 18 people who are paid between 10 and 15, but we don't know if they're all paid 15 or they're all paid 12 or some sort of mixture of that. So what we want to do is we want to take an estimate. And to do that, we just take the midpoint of this group. So to take the midpoint of this group, you would do 10 add 15 and divide it by 2. Or if you can spot that that is 12.5, then that's okay. I'm going to call this the midpoint. And then I'll work out the midpoint of each group. So the next group, it would be 17.5. Again, if you're not sure how to do that, add the two numbers together and divide by 2. Or if you notice that the width of that class is 5, half the 5 to give you 2.5, add it to the lower end of the class. So that's why I'm doing it here. The next one's 22.5, then 27.5, and then 32.5. So these are our estimated pay values, if you will. We're saying that halfway through each class is these values here. Okay, now what you would normally do if you were working out the mean is you would add up all of the values and divide by how many there are. In order to add up all these values, well, what I would be doing here is I'd be doing 12.5, add 12.5, add 12.5, 18 times. So of course, the easier way to do that is to do 12.5 multiplied by 18. So really what we're doing in this column is we're taking the frequency and we're multiplying it by the midpoint. So I'll do 18 multiplied by 12.5, which gives me 225. And you just repeat that process. So 16 multiplied by 17.5. Again, just to explain what we're doing there, we're saying there's 16 people and we're estimating that they're all paid $17.50. So just go ahead and multiply those and I'll skip to that. Okay, so these are the totals for each group. I then want to work out the total pay for all of them. This is of course an estimate, so I'm going to add up every value in that column. And when I do that, it comes out at $1,170. So in order to work out the mean, I'm going to say the mean is equal to the total of what I've estimated they're all paid, which is this, divided by how many people we're talking about, which is the sum of the frequency column, but they have actually told us that that's 60 people. So divide by 60. That comes out an answer of 19.5. Now, it is always worth checking. Does that seem reasonable? Well, the people are being paid between 10 and 35. So if the mean's 19.5, that seems very reasonable to me. And I'll just pop that on my answer line. So $19.50. Always good to put in that second decimal place there. Let's have a look at question 19. So use ruler and compasses only to construct the bisector of angle ABC. You must show all your construction lines. So the bisector is the line that cuts the angle in half. So we're going to draw a line through B, and all the points on that line are going to be equidistant, so equal distance from AB and from BC. So go ahead and take the sharp point of your compass and put it on the point B. Our aim here is to make an arc that crosses AB and that crosses BC. Let's go ahead and do that. So that's my first arc that crosses AB. And then I'll do the same over here at BC, so make that arc that crosses BC. Then what I want to do is I want to take the sharp point of my compass, put it on where my first arc was, and I'm aiming to make some arcs in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Make my arc like that. Then again, come over and put your sharp point where the other arc was and make another arc in the middle like that. And as you can see, they cross each other, which is what we want. Then what we want to do is we want to join up the point, and I've added a little point in where these two arcs crossed with our point at B. So we want to join them up with a straight line. So let me just go ahead and do that like that. So you'd have your straight line here, and that's the bisector of the angle like that. Okay, question 20. Simplify p cubed all to the power of 5. So when we have p cubed all to the power of 5, what we've really got is p cubed multiplied by p cubed 5 times over, like this. When we've got the same base, we add our indices. So we would add 3 to itself 5 times. Quicker way to do that is actually to do 3 multiplied by 5, which is p to the 15. So that's a helpful way to remember that when we have a power raised to another power, we actually just multiply the indices. The answer is p to the power 15. Expand and simplify. So when we see expand, we're thinking multiply. So I'm going to do 2n multiplied by 4n and 2n multiplied by 3. 2n multiplied by 4n gives me 8n squared. And then 2n multiplied by 3 gives me 6n. Then I want to do the same with the other bracket, n multiplied by n and n multiplied by negative 4. N multiplied by n is n squared. N multiplied by negative 4 is negative 4n. Collect together your like terms, so your n squareds with your n squareds to give you 9n squared, and your n's with your n's, so 6n take away 4n, give me 2n. These are not like terms because they don't have the same index. This has an index of 2, whereas this has an index of 1, so we cannot simplify those, so our answer is 9n squared add 2n. So part C, so solve this equation, show clear algebraic working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to undo the division by 3 on the left-hand side. I do need to remember I need to multiply both of these terms by 3. So let's go ahead and expand our bracket. It wants us to show clear algebraic working, so do 3 multiplied by 4 to give you 12, and 3 multiplied by negative x to give you negative 3x. Now I want to collect together my x's on one side and my numbers on the other, so I'm going to add 3x to both sides. That takes me to have 5x add 5 equal to 12. Then I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. It's a two-step equation, so that gives me 5x is equal to 7. And then I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides. X is equal to 7 over 5. It would be 1 2/5, which would be 1.4. So that's my answer. The question 21, here's a Venn diagram. List the members of the set B. So that's anything inside this circle here that's B. So that would be, let's do it in size order, 2, 3, 5, and 7. List the members of the set A and B. So this is what's called the intersection of A and B. That's these two terms that are in both of A, and these are the terms that are in A and in B. That would be 7 and 3 and 7, sorry. Okay, so part C, list the members of the set A dash. So that is the complement of A. In other words, everything not in set A. So if we come up and have a look, we want to just write down everything that's not in A. So these terms are not in A, and these terms are also not in A. So we'd say 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Like that. Question 22, the diagram shows a cylinder. The radius of the cylinder is 70 centimeters. The height of the cylinder is 18 centimeters. Work out the volume of the cylinder. Give your answer in liters, correct to the nearest liter. Okay, let's work out the volume of the cylinder. So the volume of the cylinder is the area of this circle on top multiplied by the height. And that can be quite helpful if we forget what the volume formula for a cylinder is. We can say the volume of the cylinder is the area of the circle on top, that's pi r squared, that's the area of the circle, multiplied by the height of the cylinder, or its length, I suppose. The radius, they've given it to us. Sometimes they give us the diameter, so we do have to be a little careful there, but they've given us the radius, it's 70 centimeters. And the height is 18 centimeters, like this. Then go ahead and pop that in your calculator and see what it gives you. And I would leave your answer in terms of pi for now. It comes out at 88,200 pi centimeters cubed. Okay, so that's the volume of the cylinder in terms of pi. It has asked us to work out the volume of the cylinder, but to give our answer in liters. So what we need to know is that 1 liter is equal to 1,000 centimeters cubed. So what we want to do is we want to divide our number by 1000 to work out how many liters there are in it. So we'll say that the volume of the cylinder, this is in liters, is our answer in centimeters cubed, 88,200 pi. Really important that we do a count for that pi because that is actually multiplying 88,200 by 3-ish. So we do need to include that, of course, and then divide that by 1000. This is going to turn it into liters. So your answer should already be stored in your calculator. So just put your answer and divide it by 1000. And it takes you to this answer in terms of pi. So 441 over 5 pi. And it's asked us to give our answer correct to the nearest liter. So let's turn that into a decimal number. It's 277.088472 liters. To give our answer correct to the nearest liter, well, it would be 277 liters. Question 23. We've been given different numbers. They're in their prime factorized forms. It says find the highest common factor of A, B, and C. Write your answer as a product of prime factors. So in order to work out the highest common factor, we want to look at each of their prime factors and see what do they all have in common. So if we look at A, B, and C, C and B both have a 2 squared in common. A has more than 2 squared, it has 2 cubed, but what we can say is that they all have 2 squared in common. Then look at their next prime factor, which is the 5, and see what's the highest thing that they all have in common. Well, this has 5 cubed, this has 5 squared, and this has 5 to the power 4. So they all have at least a 5 squared. And if you notice, for each of these, we're actually going to be picking the lowest power that they have in common. So that's why we picked the 2 squared and the 5 squared. Then look at the 7s. So they all have 1 7 in common. That's the lowest power of that prime factor. And they don't all have an 11, so I'm not going to include that. It says find the highest common factor of A, B, and C. Write your answer as a product of its prime factors. Well, I've already done that, so that's my answer. Question 24. Shop A and Shop B have offers for buying the same type of laptop. The normal price of the laptop in Shop A is different to the normal price of the laptop in Shop B. In Shop A, it says our normal price is £475. We can get 16% off our normal price. Okay. And in Shop B, we can get 15% off our normal price and only pay £408. Which shop gives the more money off their normal price? Okay. Let's look at Shop A to start with. And it tells us our normal price, and it tells us we can get 16% off our normal price. So let's work out what 16% of our normal price would be. So multiply this by 0.16. And when you do that, it comes out at £76. So for Shop A, we're going to get £76 off. Come over to Shop B. Let's see what they tell us. So get 15% off our normal price and only pay £408. So what that means is we had 100%, that's our normal price. We've taken 15% off, which takes us down to 85%. And they've told us that when we buy it for 85%, we will pay £408. So we know that 85% is £408. And we want to work out what was the original price, or even we want to work out 15% really, because that's what we lost. But let's work out 100%. In order to do that, I'm going to bridge to 1%. So I divide by 85, like this. I'm just really using this fact here that they've told me that 85% of my normal price is £408. So when you do that, it tells you that 1% is 4.8. Then that means that 100% is £480. Now, we've got 15% off. So in order to work out how much we got off, we'll take what our normal price was, which is the 480, and then we'll take away what it went down to, which is the 408. Your 480 multiplied by, 480 subtract 408 to give you an answer of £72. So which shop gives more money off their normal price? Well, we can see that shop A gives us 76, shop B gives us 72. So our answer is shop A. Just to show you another way that you could have done that, whenever you worked out what 1% was of the normal price in shop B, you could have went straight to 15% by multiplying that by 15. So if we did 4.8 multiplied by 15, it takes us straight to 72. And then we could compare and see, okay, I get more off at shop A. I just remembered we need to actually write our answer. We never actually told them what our answer is. Which shop gives more money off? We'll say shop A gives more money off. And we can give our reason for that as £76 greater than £72. Okay, so question 25, factorize x squared, add 5x, subtract 24. So we're going to use our sum and product method to do this. The sum is always the coefficient of x. In this case, it's positive 5. And the product is the number in front of x squared multiplied by the constant on the end. In this case, because that's 1, we'll just write down our constant, which is negative 24. Now, sum in maths means add and product means multiply. And the reason we do this is because it helps us to think about the pair of numbers we need in order to factorize this. We need a pair of numbers that sum, they add to 5, and they multiply to negative 24. A helpful way to do this is to list down all the factors of 24, or factor pairs, I should say. So 1 multiplied by 24, 2 multiplied by 12, 3 multiplied by 8, and 4 multiplied by 6. Now I need a pair that sums to give me 5. So I'm going to look at my pairs and see, well, which one has a difference of 5? And it would be this one. So I know my pair is going to be 3 and 8 in some form. Now it's not going to be 3 and 8 because those don't sum to 5 and they don't multiply to negative 24. So what I need to do is I need to make one of them negative. Now I want my sum to be 5 overall, so I'm going to make the smaller one negative. If I multiply negative 3 and 8 together, it gives me a product of negative 24, and if I add them together, it gives me a sum of 5. What that means is that our quadratic here factorizes into this x subtract 3 upon x add 8. That's the factorized version of our expression. It says hence solve, so it wants us to use what we did above. X squared add 5x subtract 24 equals 0. So we already know that this left-hand side can be factorized like this. That's equal to 0. And we want to think, when would this left-hand side be equal to 0? Well, it would be when either this bracket is 0 or this bracket is 0. So let's set each bracket equal to 0 because we're going to have two answers to this. So this bracket can be equal to 0, or the second bracket can also be equal to 0. And to solve that equation, x would be 3 here and x would be negative 8 here. So our answers are x, 3, x is equal to negative 8. Solve the inequality 3y add 5 is greater than 7y subtract 10. I'm just going to rewrite this out so I've got a little bit more room to do it. So what I want to do is I want to collect all of my numbers to one side and all of my variables to the other. Let's start by adding 10 to both sides. That would give me 3y add 15 is greater than 7y. Then go ahead and subtract 3y from both sides, which would give me 15 is greater than 4y. The last thing to do is to divide by 4. Gives me 15 over 4 greater than y. So we can read inequalities from left to right. So 15 over 4 is greater than y, but we can also read them right to left. Y is less than 15 over 4, and that's going to be the more helpful way to write that. Y is less than 15 over 4. Okay, question 26a, write 8.4 multiplied by 10 to the negative 5 as an ordinary number. So the way to do this is to write out what 10 to the negative 5 is. And 10 to the negative 5 is a very small number. It's 0.00001. So the index here When it's negative, tells me how many zeros there are going to be before the digit 1. So I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Place my digit 1 in that column. Okay. So what I've got here is I've got 8.4 multiplied by the 0.00001. Then what I do is I replace this digit 1 with the 8, and every other digit there is goes to the right. So it'd be 0.0000. Replace this digit 1 with the 8, and the 4 goes to the right. So that's your answer. So part B, work out 6.5 multiplied by 10 to the negative 40 multiplied by 8 multiplied by 10 to the power of 185. Give your answer in standard form. Now, if you type that in your calculator, it's too big a number, so it will not be able to give you what you want. What we'll do is we'll rewrite this. So I'm going to multiply my numbers together. So I've got 6.5 multiplied by 8. And then I'm going to multiply 10 to the negative 40 with 10 to the 185. Let's do this first part just on your calculator. We can do 6.5 multiplied by 8, which gives you 52. And then to do these, what we're going to do is we're going to add our indices together. Sorry, that should not be a negative 185. So let me get rid of that. That should have been a positive 185. I made a little mistake there. So when we have powers that have the same base, we add our indices. So on my calculator, I'll be adding negative 40 and 185. That's going to tell me what the index is on this answer. And that comes out at 145. So a very, very big number. Now this is not in standard form, because for standard form, the number at the front has to be less than 10 and greater than or equal to 1. So the way to do that is to turn 52 into standard form, which should be 5.2 multiplied by 10 to the power of 1. That's literally 5.2 multiplied by 10, which is 52. And then we're multiplying that by this part up here, which is 10 to the power of 145. That gives us 5.2 multiplied by 10 to the power of 146. That is your answer in standard form. So question 27, here are two similar triangles. So we got ABC, the bottom length there is X, AB is 7.5, and we got this other length here, okay. Work out the value of X, show you're working clearly. So they've given us this length AB on the triangle on the left, but they've not given us the corresponding side on the triangle on the right, so we'll want to work that out. What we know is that the ratio of this side to this side, so that's X over 7.5, is going to be equivalent to the corresponding ratio on the other triangle, so this side over this side. Now that's an equation we can solve if we first work out what y is. So that's what we're going to do. And in order to work out y, we're going to use Pythagoras' theorem. So if you remember, Pythagoras' theorem is that a squared add b squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared. And the hypotenuse is always the one opposite the right angle. So let's do Pythagoras' theorem on this triangle. Just going to write out Pythagoras' theorem. A squared add b squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So that means that y squared add 24 squared is equal to 51 squared. Then what we'll do is we'll take away 24 squared from both sides. So 51 squared subtract 24 squared is equal to y squared. Then we take the square root of both sides like this. So go to your calculator and plug that in and see what it gives you. And it comes out at a nice whole number of 45. Then what we can do is we can come back over here now that we know what y is, and we're looking at the ratio of side x to the side 7.5, and we've said that that's going to be equivalent to 24 over y. So let's put in our value for y. Well, we said that y was 45, like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply both sides by 7.5, like this. So 24 over 45 multiplied by 7.5. Undo that division by 7.5 there. And then I'll plug that into my calculator and see what it gives me. And that comes out an answer of 4. So x is 4 centimeters. I'll just put that down in my answer line. X is